Right now, though, it is time for personal finance, thanks to our partners Forsyth, Barr. Why do we invest in the New Zealand share market? Is there somewhere better that we could be putting our money? How does the NZX compare to the ASX, compare to the S&P 500? Mark Richardson, investment advisor, Forsyth, Barr. Good morning.
It's a good question, that actually, Ryan, because when you look at the numbers over the last 5 years, the New Zealand market, looking at the numbers very simply, about 7% return. You look at the ASX, which has been a little bit sluggish at times, but that's sort of, around, let's call it even sort of 9-10. And the S&P 500, 14 to 15%. So he says, why aren't we just pouring our money into the S&P 500? Well, it all depends on really the reason you might actually be investing. So where the New Zealand market can be very good is it pays very good dividends. So the dividend yield on average is about 5.8%. In terms of the dividend yield. So what they're paying out to you as a form of income, very good, 5.8% New Zealand market. Look at that in the S&P 500 and it's 1.5% if you're lucky, because those companies seeking growth, they tend to pour what profit they make straight back into the business to grow. So if you're looking to invest for growth over the long term, US market, very, very good. If you're looking for income, and the other thing with New Zealand dividends, you get the imputation credits. So the companies pay the company tax, you're not having to pay tax on tax. Whereas if you're investing into the Australian market, often you don't get the equivalent is called franking credits. Often in New Zealand, you don't get the benefit of them being tax deductible, so you end up paying tax on tax. So if you're looking for a stable income, New Zealand market is very heavily dominated by utilities, these sort of almost immovable objects, you could say, in terms of businesses, quite stable and will spit out a decent form of cash flow in the form of income, which is in dividends, which is quite tax efficient, as opposed to seeking growth if you go for the US market.
Which is like a capital gain, really, isn't it?
Yeah.
Over that way.
And you can draw from a portfolio as a whole, but imagine it like you've got two pizzas. You got the New Zealand pizza, you got the US pizza. You're going to wring out the New Zealand pizza and then lay it back out, take the cheese out of the cheese crust. Let's say there's your dividend and the pizza remains a similar size, so it grows a little bit. The US, you're having to carve it up a bit. And if you're looking for income, that can be a little bit inefficient.
So, is this the part where you tell me that we should have a balanced portfolio of all of these things included?
Yes, I am, Ryan.
Thought it was about that time.
We would look at, let's say, a balanced portfolio having 15% New Zealand equities. Okay. But then depending on what you want out of your portfolio, we may up that weighting a little bit. Right now, because it's very difficult to get your hands on fixed interest at the moment. There's a lack of supply, liquidity out there, people holding on to those really good coupon paying fixed interest. That there's a reason why you might actually look to actually outweight your holding in New Zealand if you're after income, because of the dividend that they pay out. And that will also potentially, because of that extra demand, that might actually drive up the capital price as well. So, we're hoping that we might actually see a little bit of life because of that, the stable dividends. Bearing in mind the companies need to be able to maintain that dividend over the next wee while.
Do people who get really rich out of trading in the stock market, do they do that via dividends, or do they do that via increase in the market cap of companies, and they've ridden the wave and then they cash out and realise it? Well,
those who stick it out for the long term generally will prosper, Ryan.
Is that time?
Yeah, if you're looking for growth, obviously, ideally you want to be reinvesting those dividends. So that's how you get the benefit of compounding growth, or maximise the benefit of compounding growth. The other point I want to make with why you would look to invest in the New Zealand market if you're a New Zealand investor and you are using a firm like ours, is that we are close to these companies. Our researchers are very close to these companies. They get to know these companies inside out, like the back of their hand. They know what drives them, they know who's driving them, and we get a really clear picture. Even though we use research partners from around the world, we're right here. They come in, they report to us, we give them hell.
Hey, what's your favourite pie? Steak and cheese.
Well, the first thing with a pie is it's got to be a pie you can eat in your hand. I'm not interested in a pie you got to actually put it. It's so complicated that you got to put it on a plate and eat it with a knife and fork.
Yeah, that, to be fair, the winning pie did look like one you'd need a knife and fork for.
Yeah, therefore it's not a pie. It defeats the purpose of what I'm buying a pie for. I want to be able to drive back from the beach and eat a pie and drive at the same time.
It's versatility.
Yeah.